into things. Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown, and with me for the very first time is our charity champion. Say hi, charity champion. Hi, Elle. Thank you so much for joining me. This is, first of all, thank you so much for donating to Doctors Without Borders. So incredibly important and like necessary and all of those things. And I am blown away by people's generosity, both to me and to everyone else in the group. I think I looked just prior. I just had this open on my phone. I still do. We're just shy of $13,000 right now raised with 11 days left in the month, which is wild because I think our original goal was 1,500. So like we've exceeded that by quite a bit.
Wow. Wonderful.
Yeah. But yeah, I know. I was certainly very. I think I've mentioned this before. That I sort of thought like I had a concern of like no one's gonna want to get an interview with me, and boy was I wrong. I'm looking at my email right now where I have like multiple things that are like the nudge where like a Gmail has been like, hey, you haven't responded to this email for so long. I would like to remind you that you should. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's someone who gave money to charity that I haven't had time to reach back out to. That's the worst kind of like getting blown off. But
No.
I've made time for you today, and that's important. We're recording this January 20th, just so that, like, I did say 11 days until the end, but just so that, like, if we start talking junior year or whatever, people know where we're at. I don't want someone to be like, well, why didn't they talk about episode 3? We haven't seen it. I'm not getting episodes early, and it's devastating. How did one of the things that I really love to find out from folks is sort of their journey into Dropout content. Like what brought you along for that ride?
Yeah, so I was a longtime College Humor follower I was far too young to be a College Humor follower. I was probably like 8, sitting there in like 2012 watching Jake and Amir. And then when Dropout started happening, I completely blew it off. I did not think I was going to be into that at all. And then the pandemic hits, and I start getting into Dungeons and Dragons, and then immediately I watch Fantasy High on YouTube. I watched the first, I think it was like 4 episodes of sophomore year on YouTube, and then I get a 1-week trial, and I watch the rest of sophomore year, all of on Sleeping City, and like the first 9 episodes of The Crown of Candy in a week. And since then, I have been a devoted.
Yeah.
And then it obviously opens up to all of the Dropout content. I watch pretty much everything at this point. I don't think there's an episode I don't watch at release.
Yeah. I am very much in the same boat, obviously, except for I am now in this very weird, very wonderful, but very weird spot where, like, if I haven't watched something, I can't log into my own TikTok because people have probably spoiled it in the comments. Like, not to be like mean, just because they're like, this is a place I can talk about it. It's strange. I've mentioned this, but like it was, I had not exactly the same track. First of all, I love because you're not the first person that's been like, I started watching Jake and Amir way too young. It's very funny how many people are like, like 8 to 11 years old, like watching Jake and Amir, and it's like, that can't have been good. But yeah, I had a similar experience where like I had come in through the McElroys and listened to Taz and really fell in love with it, and then listened to NADPOD and really fell in love with it, and saw that Emily and Murph were part of Fantasy High, and I knew that about Tiny Heist I had only watched the first episode because that was all that was on YouTube, and then when I started watching Fantasy High on YouTube, the swears were bleeped out, and I couldn't handle it. It made me so irrationally angry. And I was like, I don't care how much the service costs. I'll happily pay it to not have bleeped swears. And then it was whatever, like $4.99 a month or whatever at that point. And I was like, oh, I can afford this forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's super fun. Yeah, I certainly I did not consume as rapidly as you, but yeah, I mean it makes once you get into that, and you're like, I want more, and by the time you had joined, like there was such a huge backlog of shows. Yeah, that's delightful. What are some of your favorite D20 shows then, or seasons, I should say?
I will say I recently saw your TikTok where you're talking to Abria about your top three, and we have a
Hmm.
similar top seasons. Um, I'm apprehensive about putting Burrow's End as high as I want to, just because I haven't had time to stew on it. But where am I? Yeah, I have them all written down in a long running notes app. Currently, sophomore year, Burrow's End, A Crown of Candy.
Okay, yeah, I mean, as Abria said in that video, it's an honor just to be nominated in an Intrepid Heroes list. Like, which that was one of the things. Like, I have a Misfits and Magic T-shirt that I was wearing in that video or in that interview, and like I don't. I know I talk about the merch a lot on my channel, but I don't buy that much merch. Just because like it has to be something that I really want or really love. And it's like to get a Miss Meg like shirt meant that I really loved it, but because there are 5 total episodes, like it can't like broach what I get in a 20 episode like Intrepid Heroes season. And then Miss Mag or then Burrow's End came in, and yeah, like what they did in 10, I was just like, oh no, I love this a lot. um, and it certainly doesn't
Yes.
hurt to have like the wildest maps Dimension 20 has ever done. A thing that I love about Dimension 20 is like, oh, also the best maps you've ever seen.
Yeah. Just yeah.
Yeah.
That and honestly Mentopolis too. Like the side quests have been hitting
Mhm.
really. I currently we are in what I don't think I've seen anyone else say this, and so I'm happy to have coined this term, the Chavanescence
Oh, I do like that a lot.
Renaissance,
Yes.
but it's just
Yeah.
3 Chavan seasons in a row that are all amazing.
Yes. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Oh man, I hope she's in Never Stop Blowing Up now, and we just keep Shyvana since rolling. Yeah, um, yeah. Oh god, Mentopolis was really fantastic. Um, I was just looking at my TikTok, and I had a draft where someone called Siobhan boring in someone else's comment section, and I have a draft where I'm screaming at them, and I was like, it feels unnecessary, but like it is just sitting in my drafts, so maybe I'll release it someday.
I don't know how you could ever.
I know. The thing that I love about Siobhan so much, because I feel like she is very underrated in terms of the Intrepid Heroes, and it's because everyone is so good. Um, but Siobhan understands Brennan's worlds better than anyone else does, and that makes for, I mean, as a DM myself, like makes for such a like beautiful bond between like DM and player of like, hey, you get what I'm trying to do here, and you're leaning into it. I guess arguably you could say Abria gets Brennan's worlds maybe just as well as Siobhan, but like that Abria is not part of the Intrepid Hero, so she doesn't count. You don't count Abria, and so. But yeah, I do. Oh man, yeah, I remember because I joined boy, it was probably mid 2020 when I joined. So sophomore year was over. I think A Crown of Candy was just starting because I think I watched that season live. Um, and oh boy, yeah. But sophomore year, it's always wild to me when people don't talk about sophomore year in like their top seasons because like it's just so incredible. Like I know we didn't get maps and the audio can be difficult, but like Nightmare Forest, I live for it. Like so good. Emily wishing diamonds into existence, like an all timer. Um,
Yeah, I remember the 2 part like 8 hour full finale. I
mhm.
watched. I think between the hours of 12 a.m. and like 8 a.m. just because I was trying to do it all in a week, and I just fully plowed through all of it, and I was sitting there just playing Sudoku on my phone to keep myself awake as I was getting through those like Zoom, and it was just that like memory of sophomore year is just why it has to be my number one still, just
Yeah.
because there's so much, and just sophomore year, there's so much.
Yeah.
It's such a dense season because they
Yes.
are so able to do those bits.
Hmm. And they are able to. I mean, it was never a matter of, oh, I built the Leviathan map, so we have to get to Leviathan. It was you go wherever you want, and do whatever you want. Yeah, I would assume you heard. It's one of my favorite Brennan stories, is because obviously, like you said, they were remote for those last that huge finale, and that final episode I think is just shy of 5 hours, if I remember correctly. And I know Brennan has told the story that like the next day he had a note from his neighbor that was like, I don't know what happened last night, but it can never happen again. Because it was, like 5 hours into the night, him making like screeching horror noises just all night long, which I love. Yeah, it's a great season. It's unequivocally a great season.
I relate slightly on that because there was one point where because when I got into D&D, it was pandemic, everything was online. And so I at one point was running a D&D campaign for people spread out so far across the world that the only time that we could all play together was for me 2 a.m. And just fully standing in my kitchen at 2 a.m. trying not to wake up the rest of the house as I'm trying to DM was
An impossible task. Yeah, I've never had to do that myself, but I was in a game briefly, where one person was in Hawaii and one person was in South Africa, and I was like, I think you might be almost as far apart in time zones as you can get. So like one of them was playing at like 11 a.m. and the other was playing at like 3 a.m. And it's like, this is why 3 a.m. the next day. Yeah, it's wild to play like that.
yeah,
And
we
meanwhile, I'm
were
over here like, hey, I've got a 2-year-old, so I can only play like after 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Let's go.
yeah, we were spread from West Coast United States all the way to India.
Yeah, that's
So and the person from India could only play in the middle of the day, so that's why we were us two from the United States were playing at like I think for him it was like you know 11 o'clock. For me it's 2 a.m. And then we had some people from England who were playing at like 6 a.m.
yeah. That's
Just
hey, I mean, if someone came to me, there would be I'd just be like, well, you know what? I don't have to play in this game. That literally actually happened not long ago. It was a short game too, where someone was like, hey, what if we did? And I was like, nah, I can't be up that late. I'm sorry.
yeah,
I
I was
would
just
I would
so
love it. Yeah, yeah. I've also like with not even the charity interviews, which are incredible, but like my like regular interviews where I'm talking to folks, like I mean, I've been on sort of a not a lull, but I haven't talked to anyone about D&D in a bit, because I've talked to Vic now a couple of times, and I talked to Tamar, the director of Very Important People, yesterday. But I like in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to talk to Kate May, the artist for Junior Year, and Kevin Stiller, the DP for Dimension 20. So I'll get back into those discussions. And like I've already been, of course, messaging like the production crew on Instagram to be like, "This is amazing," and like harassing them into interviews. But it does, yeah. Like I was going to say because I talk about it sort of like in this kind of format so often, or at least I was, that like it sort of really scratched that itch for me of like, well, I don't get to play as often as I would like, but I did just spend an hour talking to Carlos Luna about like the entirety of Burroughs End. So
Yeah. Uh,
it's
but
look, I'm very grateful, and I know it sounds because every time I say something, I'm like, sounds braggy. I mean, to be fair, I think I cleaned it up. I spilled ketchup on my shirt right before this, and then tried to wipe it off, and I was like, I'm not going to change. I'm just going to do this interview and hope that no one notices. And then I said it out loud, and I'm not going to edit this out. Yeah, I
well,
in my Vic interview, they stumbled through the intro, the Vic 2 interview, I should say. They stumbled in the intro because they stopped listening to me, which is fair. And then they asked me to like do it again, and I was like, yeah, we can. I was like, do you really want to? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, you can. I was like, I'm gonna leave all this in. They're like, you can leave it in. I just want people to know that I can listen, which was very funny. And then literally the next day, I was interviewing Tamar Levine, the director, and I fully butchered the interview or the intro for the first time. Like every other time I've done it, I've like landed that little plane, and for the first time, I like started talking and I fully missed like a couple of words, and I was just like, "Oh, I got to start this again." And then I even said to Tamara, I was like, "I'm gonna have to leave this in to be fair to Vic, that like to show them like, hey, I also screwed this up, and I wrote it, and I do it all the time." Because Vic was their title's not the right word. Whatever the last two words are in that little thing, they were incredible interviewer, and they said incredible interviewee because they had disassociated at the end of my thing, which is also pretty close still. Um, yeah, I guess on that topic, sort of. We'll get back to Dimension 20 and like everything else, but we're going to bounce around a lot because that's the energy that these have now. I've fallen very much in love with Very Important People. You said you're watching basically everything that comes out. What are some of your favorite other Dropout shows then?
um, as someone studying theater in college, Play It by Ear is
Yes.
phenomenal. Um,
I was so
honestly,
grateful to the official cast recording, not just because I loved it so much, but also because, sorry, I just realized I might. So this is a portrait of me holding my pet pig for the first time, and there was a half a second where I thought I was wearing the same shirt that I am in that picture, but I think I was wearing like a purple button down instead of a purple sweater. But that really threw me off for a second. I'm very sorry. There was a train of thought. One of the things I love about official cast recording is not just the episode, but that I had never heard of Off Book. And I fell so madly in love with Zach and Jess that I just started listening to Off Book. And I'm still years behind because by the time that happened, they had like a couple hundred episodes to listen to. But like I've probably listened to, I don't know, 30 to 50 of them over the like last 2.5 years since that episode came out. Like it was such a joy to like really sink into a thing that still baffles me, musical improv. But yeah, I mean, for sure, and yes, and Play It by Ear, it's really, really special. Every episode is special. Uh,
wild how they do that.
yeah.
Truthfully, yeah. The Dropout line, I will say, one thing that I miss from Dropout was that period of time. I think like right before the pandemic hit. I've gone back and watched all the logs where they just had a bunch of podcasts for
Hmm.
random things, like Tales from the Closet, top tier.
Yeah.
I blew through so many episodes of that. I also, yeah, Dropout. Like the content that they're making now is so ambitious and so good, and I love all the improv. I love going back and watching from before they really had that
Hmm.
identity, and they were just doing so many wild things.
Yeah. They had so much money and they could just do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw an interview. Oh, it was a Foes and Fables interview with Michael Schaubach, who directs D20. And he was talking about like when he first came to Dropout, one of the things that he worked on really early No, that couldn't. I guess he talked about working on actually really early, but then he talked about like some of the other stuff that he was really proud of. That's what it was. And Gods of Food, I think, was Reika's show. That another just like phenomenal, but also what a show. And he was like, look, we had to like recreate chef's tables with a budget of like $50. Like we were like just scraping together. But yeah, I agree. Like I'm really excited that like we're getting Smarty Pants and Nobody Asked and Thousand Airs. And Dropout Presents, although I'm convinced Dropout Presents is the Hank Green pissing out cancer special, and maybe some more after that. Like maybe they're going to start a series, but like I've fully convinced myself that that's what it is. Um, um, but I'm excited we're getting like those 3 new shows because I agree. Like I would love to see like, and one of the things that I love about Very Important People is that like it has such a different format than some of their other stuff. That it is like very much a narrative improv as opposed to like game showy improv. And yeah, it was really cool. Like talking to Tamar about the whole process of the show, and she was like, you know, like we cut in those episodes, but it's not to like workshop things. It's just like Tamar will have like a note of like in the Denzel episode, like, all right, you seem pretty mad at him. What if like by the end you've accepted him or whatever? Like the like a thread because Tamar comes from scripted and not improv background. And so and also brilliant to hire a director like that. Because then she is able to be like, let's find a story that like we're telling in that 15 to 30 minutes and it's not just goofs for 15 to 30 minutes but like the audience gets to like have a beginning middle and end that like does stuff. Although she did say that the Nana episode they didn't apparently cut once because there was such a clear narrative that was happening already that there was like Tamar just like she was like I just got up like she was saying she had like a Slack that goes with like her and 2 of the other people who were on set that like sitting back and like they like message to each other like as it's going. And she's like that one I just like got up and walked around and tried not to laugh because it was just so wild.
Yeah, that was a special episode. I want to, by the end of like whatever season of Very Important People they have, I want to just put together the life story of Vic Michaelis, the character from Very
Yeah.
Important People.
Yeah, I mean it absolutely is a thing because that was one of the things that I talked to Vic and to Tamar about like because Vic had said that they had hopped in like I think the Discord while that episode was airing to just like kind of see what people were saying, and it was like someone had commented like it's probably by accident, but like Vic's actually developing like a lore for like their character. And Vic was like, we worked so hard on like Vic the interviewer's backstory so that like Vic could have that as a thread for the whole season between interviews of like, here's these things that I can pull from. And specifically in Nana of like why Vic would care like to continue that interview with someone who was so mean. But it was because like Vic, the interviewer, wanted to prove to Bianca, their stepdaughter, like I'm like important. Family is important, and like I'm good at this,
Yeah.
which is very fun. Little like it's fun to get those little insights. But yes, I would love to get like a Vic, who like Denzel lives in Vic's guest house. Vic has a husband and a stepdaughter, Bianca. I don't know what other things were going to be introduced, but yes, for sure there will be a like thread of like who Vic is.
Yeah, I'm sensing some marital issues possibly because of
Because
Denzel saying that
yes,
Vic was
Vic was
crying. He was
yes,
crying. So
yep,
just put together the timeline.
yeah, yeah. It would be that would be very fun. I would love to see the final results. Yeah, I also will say apparently, and I think you're going to be the first person who knows this. Congrats. I mean, outside of me. But like, so I was talking to Tamar about, because I talked to Vic about, you know, not laughing during like the Nana episode, like how wildly impressive that is. And they're like, you know, because it was so physical and also because a lot of like, I had that like actor backstory, like to like fall back on, I was able to for the, like most, like, I think you can kind of hear Vic's voice crack, but like never like start like laughing kind of stuff. But that they were able to like fall back on that. But Vic said, yeah, like the Zach Oyama episode where he's Tommy Shrigley, that like bodybuilder nightmare man, like that Vic, they had to like cut for like 5 minutes because Vic fully lost their mind, um, and I was talking to Tamar about that, and Tamar was like, "Look, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will tell you, Zach was the last episode we filmed, and I told him that he was the last episode we were going to film, and that he could go nuts because we didn't need the set after this episode was done. So it's gonna be something special."
What a wonderful person to give that note to.
Yes, yeah. Um,
Cannot.
Yeah, my only fear is that the Zach episode is, because it was shot last and probably is the wildest, is going to be last in the season, because I'm sure it would make for a fantastic finale. But man, I want to see it right now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not wait. That's gonna be
yeah,
that's gonna be a night.
yeah. I know you mentioned like that you love play it by ear. I'm assuming that mean, as like a theater person, I'm assuming that means also you have a general like love of like the karaoke night episodes of Game Changer, as well as like a game most changed, since it's the Shakespearean improv, which is I like. Rashawn Scott doesn't understand how they do that, so like if she doesn't get it, I can't possibly comprehend. I saw Ross Bryant posted like a couple of weeks ago that like they did that with Patrick Stewart. Like Patrick Stewart like participated in Shakespearean improv, and apparently it's not the first time he's done it. And I was like, what? That's even cooler. Like, yeah, you have a Shakespearean trained actor, legendarily so, doing
Yeah,
improvised Shakespeare with you. Yeah.
that's crazy. A game most changed was, I don't think it was the first, but I think it was the most recent time that I saw an episode of Game Changer and was like, oh, this is something.
Yes.
I think like at least like once or twice a season, and there's an episode of Game Changer which just like we're doing so much, so much more than we've ever done before.
Yeah. I mean, even from the like painting the podiums to make them look like they're marble, to obviously the actual improv itself, that somehow like every bit of it is wild to me, that they are able to like create a coherent narrative over the course of that, while like pulling in those prompts, that are just like gibberish prompts of like, talk about breakfast cereals, and they're like, not only am I going to, but that's going to be a callback in about 20 minutes. That's going to be like stunning. Anyway, truly amazing. um, yeah, I obviously like that episode was really special. Official cast recording kind of, I feel like, felt the same way. I mean, obviously, like it got a full episode spin-off. I guess technically, not technically, Make Some Noise, the original, like it certainly felt the
Yeah,
same way of just like, oh, we're not doing anything like groundbreaking, but like you've captured something so special in this moment that like I will watch. What, 2 full seasons? They're working on the third. Like, the silliest prompts imaginable. Sure. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
It's just uh,
I love that.
mm,
Like, we got like get the like cut for time episodes, even because of like, that Sam has at least recognized. For sure, there are probably some prompts in there that didn't work, and like jokes fell a little flat or whatever for them. I'm sure they were still great, but there were prompts in that cut for time that I was like, I'm astonished that this was not on the air. Like, I know you have to cut for literal time and like to make the rounds even, but like, wild to me that like Frodo and Sam playing I Spy didn't like make it to air. Just like so good.
no, yeah. That last Wayne Brady song and
Uh,
oh,
Yeah. I know a lot of people who were big. It was Counting Crows that Zach did, right? A lot of people who were big Counting Crows fans, or at least knowledgeable of them, were really blown away by that song. As someone who didn't listen to a lot of Counting Crows, I was like, it was fun and funny, but like to me, it wasn't like he nailed it, and which is the response I saw. But yes, the Prince's bad tipper was. I was just like I felt like Rashawn while I was watching that, because like her reaction of just like losing her mind while it's happening. I was like, yeah, that's the same thing I'm doing on the couch right now.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, I guess does that? I assume then like game most changed. Official cast recording probably in like the upper echelon of your like favorite game changer episodes. Any others that like jump out to you of like, oh, this was also really special? For me, Escape the Green Room is obviously
exactly
high
what I
up
was gonna
there.
say. Yeah, that one's up there.
Our first Siobhan on Game Changer, so it would have been special no matter what it was, and then it was truly one of the wildest episodes they've ever done.
Yeah, I think even though I don't think it's much of a form breaker, but I do love the Secret Santa episodes.
Yeah.
Every single time they do those, it feels like the cast really is, especially because there's so much help from the outside sources of like, oh, this is a new gift. Just yeah, I think it's also one of them that feels the least like a game show and the
hmm
most like they're playing like One Night Ultimate Werewolf or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I really love those as well. I was talking to someone for this series pretty recently, and they said that they were sort of early-ish in their Dropout like um, career is not the right word, but like obsession. And so they hadn't watched the Zoom season of Game Changer. And I was like, I get it. They're like, I just can't like mentally be there. And I was like, fair, right? And I was like, but you got to watch Jeopardy. You gotta watch Secret Santa from that season. Like if you like grab those two episodes, I think they're all great, but like those two episodes, you can like jump in and be like, oh, this is like this. Well, Secret Santa because it's the same general format, but like the Jeopardy episode was like, oh, this is a format built for Zoom. Like it works really well here.
Yeah, yeah. Dropout. They just keep doing stuff.
They
I will
just
say
keep.
that yeah, they just keep doing stuff. I will say you did mention it before, and just not another D&D podcast. They're out there doing some stuff.
Yeah.
I just started listening to campaign 2 for a second time.
Mhm.
It's so good. It's
It's
so good.
ridiculously good. Yeah. I'm. I don't know if you've listened to this week's 8-bit book club of, on the main feed, which is Caldwell wrote a choose your own adventure book based off of Frozen, like the Frozen universe. It's incredible. And like so like the main episode is them playing through that, and then the short rest episode is like a second run through because Caldwell wrote so much that there's enough to like do a full 2 hours. Yeah, I
Caldwell Tanner.
yeah, commits to the
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
I
really
took
excited for his episode in Game Changer. I mean, I know it's not just him, but like I'm excited for that like very like drawing like drawfee energy of like that looks very fun. Yeah, I but yes, it's hard for me because like NADPOD campaign one like is my favorite. I think because one it's similar to the like the issue I have with the Intrepid Heroes like beating everything out is I've spent the most time with like the Band of Boobs because there were not only 100 episodes of that first campaign, but then I've attended and listened to so many live shows where they're playing them
yeah.
that like it's just so much fun. Like that's the like it was my first thing brought in, and then like it was so good. But yeah, but yes, campaign two is just the third mates are so special in their own right. Um, it was
I
really fun at the 5-year anniversary show in Carnegie Hall, they played every campaign. So like they played Band of Boobs, they played the Third Mates, they played the Trinity Vale Triplets, they played Duck Team. That's the last one. And like so, it was really fun to like get all of those. Like it was fun to see like Thea and the gang again for the first time in years for me, because I don't have the time to go back and re-listen as much as I would love to. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I'm lucky to have a job that does not need my ears at all.
mhm.
So I'm just sitting back there dishwashing and just podcasts constantly. Making my way through that. I just finished listening to Replay from Dead Ghost Productions. Making my way through Tales from Grevlon, very good. Obviously, Unprepared Casters,
Yeah,
love
I
Unprepared
got to
Casters.
talk to Haley this week.
So
That was super fun. I've very lightly dipped my toe into Unprepared Casters of like to try and get a vibe for the interview. Um, and so I think it was campaign 5 that I listened to the most of. But I started the episode with Zach Oyama because I wanted to at least like get like a feeling for what that was, and it was very fun. I just mentioned this to someone. Very fun to hear Zach really lean into his Alabama accent. And just like it's the first time I've ever heard him do it. And like as soon as he dropped into it, I was like, that's a man who knows that accent. Like, yeah, I'm, it's always one of those things that like Unprepared Casters is so high on my list, and I'm just, like, I wish. So I don't have a job that needs my ears, but it does need my concentration. And
yeah,
like I just can't like have something that's anything other than just like even like music with lyrics would probably be too distracting. I'm certainly not able to listen to like narrative and keep my brain together. But there was a couple of weeks where I had like a couple of weeks ago where I had something really tedious I had to do, and it took me 2 full days, and I just listened to podcasts the whole like 2 days because I was literally like downloading images, making them smaller, and re-uploading them. And so like because there was literally no thought, it was just a repetition. I was able to be like, oh, I could knock out. I think I was listening to Twilight Sanctorum because it was right as that had come out. Oh man, I will. I so badly want to talk to Jake about Mavid specifically.
yes,
My God. Um,
yeah. I truly, I think NADPOD is the most well cast actual play,
mhm.
just because those four people know each other so well and are doing so much
Yeah,
constantly.
yeah. It's one of those things where it was last summer. I think is when they switched to the every other week format, and at the time it seemed like it was going to be a summer thing, and not a permanent thing. And um, I was fine with it immediately, but very specifically, like because the off week content is so good as well, I'm never like like even though yes, of course, campaign 3 is amazing. I want to hear all of it as soon as possible. But like when we get like Caldwell writing a choose your own adventure book, who's to complain about the like that I didn't get like a narrative week? Um, yeah, I man, they are really something special. Um, yeah, I think if for me, I think like Worlds Beyond Number could be that good. Um, it just is so new that like it like in 5 years, if like Worlds Beyond Number is still like cranking out episodes, like it very well might be because they obviously know each other probably as close, not as closely, but like certainly like same general level. Yeah, and like a county affair is probably the hardest I've ever laughed at an actual play. I I just like Lou Wilson nearly dying from laughter is never not funny, and it was the hardest I've ever heard him laugh. It made me want to run a roll for shoes game myself, and that's not usually what happens in those games where I'm like listening. I'm like, this is a system I don't know. Like Mentopolis, super fun, loved it. Like I genuinely madly in love with it as a season. like no part of me was like, I gotta run this like modified like kids on bikes system, even though I'm sure it would be very fun and I would happily do it, but there was no like urgency of that. But that roll for shoes thing, I was like, okay, how hard would it be to put together a roll for shoes one shot? Yeah.
Yeah. I was the only part about a county affair that I disliked was purely just a choice I wanted someone to make and it didn't happen. And I know why it didn't happen because it would have been so bad narratively, but it would have been hilarious if when Lou goes back and changes it to where he's betraying the
Mhm.
party, Brendan had accept fate 4. I wanted so badly for him to crash the truck in that moment. I used my accept fate to just crash the truck, taking us all down at the same time. That moment, it would have ended so anticlimactically, and it would have been terrible for a narrative, but it would have been so funny. Just
uh,
chicken grandma to just grab the wheel of a truck.
I mean, that was basically how her story ended. It just was in her epilogue instead of in the actual narrative. Yeah, yeah. Oh man, that one was special. And wild that was Erica's first time GMing. Like, what a what a triumph for them. Yeah. Are you a rotating heroes person as well? Um,
Uh, I I have gone through the stuff. I've gone through the first arc, but I have
mhm.
not yet continued.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that is where I hit as well because Emily was in the first arc. I was like, I'll listen to anything she's in. And because so like I'm also very unfortunately like my brain wants me to be a completionist. So like I'm 120 episodes into campaign 2 of Critical Role, but I'm not going to listen to Emily's arc in campaign 3 until I can get there. So like I just have to wait. And so my thought process of that was actually that like I haven't listened to Obelisks, wait, Outlaws and Obelisks, the Three Black Halflings series that Emily was on, because I started Three Black Halflings from the beginning, which I have started and I really love. I just haven't been able to catch up to that. But that was the great thing with Rotating Heroes was because I was able to just be like, no, it's the first arc. I can start here and listen to it, and really loved it. And I am really excited to dive into Jasper taking over. I adore Jasper as a DM. I adore Jasper generally, but such a good DM. That 2-shot that he ran for NADPOD was magic.
Amazing.
Yeah. Uh, Beverly trying to convince everyone that he is the tallest after they get shrunk was so funny. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I know because I know that the next arc of Rotating Heroes is, I mean, Jasper and Zach because they're in all of them, but then it's Rashawn and Vic, and I was just like, well, I have to listen to that. I love all of these people so much, and Vic and I are best friends now. It's a weird thing. Yeah. So I know you mentioned you play. It sounds like you DM then. No, you said you DM because you were trying to keep quiet in your kitchen. Are you in? I assume you're still in games plural or just singular.
Uh, Currently singular, but it's yeah, kind of because I run occasionally. I have a friend who he and I do a thing where one of us will DM for the other in just a
Mhm.
two-player. But I don't know if I don't count that as like a long-running thing because it's very short and when we have the chance. But I do have a weekly game right now that is chaos, uh, mainly because my style of GMing is very I will create an incredibly sad plot and then just give you so much breathing room to mess around inside of it. But then I will come around and hit you with a hammer.
Mhm.
Um, and one of my players is kind of was just making fun of dead family members of another player, and they just fully started slapping each other in game. And then we were all, like obviously we all had a conversation. It was good, and then they went back to slapping each other in game, and just
Look,
I love
I get why Bros and sophomore year in A Crown of Candy are up at your top of your lists. Then sad plot lines with room to breathe.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's very fun. Yeah, part of me is like, I wish I could have a weekly game. And part of me is so grateful that I play once a month because it gives me time to prep and like think of what's going to come next. Um, but yeah, um, um, so speaking of sad with room to breathe, what are your thoughts on junior year? Um, 2 episodes in, boy, Brennan came with the hammer this week.
Episode 2 was in the best way, I think the hardest episode of any actual play for me to watch ever, because Wednesday was the first day of the new semester for me at school,
Mhm.
and I had work the night before. So I have so like get off of work at like 10:30, and then have to be awake for school at 9 o'clock. Have school, play a 4 hour D&D session, go home and watch episode 2 of junior year. Exhausting
Yeah,
and amazing.
yeah, um, yeah. I've just started like a talkback show. Isn't probably the right word, but a friend and I are doing sort of an analytical show. I guess it's a talkback show about junior year specifically, and we recorded our episode last night for episode 2, and yeah, we were talking about like what we thought the themes of this season are going to be based on sort of where we're at 2 episodes in, and it feels very much, at least to me, like the themes are consequences of like, hey, you've been screwing around. Guess what? Like you've never gone to class. That's a problem in high school. um, so yeah, I very much like I know Siobhan in her behind the scenes is like it's the goof season, but boy, it sure didn't feel like goofs last night. It was, or not last night, Wednesday night. Like it was still silly, but there's a different tone when you're like we're so tired, we just got home, all of our support structures, not all but virtually all of our support structures are just like leaving. Yeah, I'm concerned that Siobhan was not being truthful and it's the goof season.
Siobhan lying to us
Yeah,
all?
would never. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on where we're headed in junior year? Any wild speculation you want to throw out? Mine is that like we're gonna get like Arthur Eggford has just fully broken time, and so like it's gonna be like we've already like kind of seen that like Aelwyn should be I think a year older than Adine, but is now suddenly like teaching. Like it doesn't make there's like a gap that like kind of doesn't make sense. And
Also,
and like Zelda graduated already, although the 7 should be concurrent with like junior year anyway. Yeah, it definitely already feels like they're doing some weird stuff with time. And I feel like it's going to be a real nightmare for the rest of the season.
yeah. Honestly, I'm very excited to just see how isolated these characters get,
Mhm.
because I love that that was what episode 2 was just we're taking away everything. Like you, because sophomore year was such a like they there was so much camaraderie in sophomore year of just we're picking up random people and we're going and we're doing this thing. And I think that this season is going to be the episode where they were alone in the nightmare forest where everyone
Mhm.
was taken away from them. I think that's just this season, just
Yeah,
in its entirety. And I cannot wait to just see how I honestly I want infighting in this. Like that's where I think this is going to go. Like I think I think one of the smart two, I think like Riz or Adine is going to get very upset at Fabian at some point. Or like honestly, like Fabian or Kristen or Fig with
Mhm.
just the amount of, we're gonna fuck around and not do anything. I think like that's where I'm hoping it goes, with just like there's a few of them that really are striving to make things work and a few of them that are not, and they
Yeah.
clash.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly feels like that's where we're headed. With like Riz has a full like murder board up of how do I get all my friends to go to the same college as me. Oh, Riz, oh, so sad. Murph just breaking hearts. You know he's gonna. Also, I mean, to sort of the other end of that, you got the beautiful Murph meltdown of so tactical, so late. It was just I oh man, I couldn't stop laughing. I mean, he couldn't stop laughing in that, which obviously like fully broke me as well. Just like watching Murph just like crying with laughter at those silly minis, and such a perfect use of Brennan, like really leaning into that thing in D&D where we've beaten the actual BBEG. Why are the minions still here? The fight's over. We've won. They can't stop us. And now we just have to slog through the rest of this, and then having two of those guys pop up. Oh, it was so good. Um, yeah, and I had mentioned to Steve, who I do the little show with, it's that thing of like, if it was an action or if it was a movie, we saw the thing that you would never see, which was the like, you've defeated the big bad, now you have to drive home. Like the now here's the bad part of that, like you're in the middle of the red waste and you have 48 hours to get home. um yeah. uh, uh,
Fully. Yeah, that just that I also feel like, because that I feel like it's almost a continuation. I feel like this is a very good continuation of sophomore year, because that is mentioned in the beginning of, like, one of the first things in sophomore year is Brennan saying, yeah, they had uh, defeated Calvaxis and then had to go do his minions, a very poorly structured D&D campaign, in like the first episode of sophomore year, and that feels like what we're getting to, like because we had a very big fight. Honestly, I would love it if every single fight after this is so easy, and the bad kids are going so all out on no one, just expending so many resources to defeat someone that they could have just punched.
Yeah, that would be very fun. Knowing Brennan, it won't be. Knowing Brennan, it's going to
Yeah.
be like every combat will be wildly deadly. I'm also I'm excited because it feels like we're going to get classes really for the first time ever. That we're going to spend some time in the school, because obviously like sophomore year was completely out of the school and freshman year was mostly not in the school. And I'm excited to get some time seeing like what a barbarian class is actually like, and all of that. Yeah, um,
Junior year just becomes
oh, go
like,
ahead.
junior year just becomes like resource management,
Hmm.
just fully. Now you have to go to class. Now you have to pay bills. You have to like
Yeah,
just fully. Hey gang, for this one we're bringing in encumbrance. You got to just
yeah,
all the words.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Oh man, this just made me laugh really hard. The idea of this was like, it would be very funny if there was like a combat where like Kristen couldn't go because she had like a term paper due the next day, and because she's failing out of school, and so like she stays in initiative order, and it just cuts back to her like in her room writing, and just like making saving throws against like whether she can stay awake or whatever, as the rest of them are in like fully pitched combat, would be hysterical. And it's certainly something Brennan. It feels like something Brennan could do. Yeah,
yeah, something like that, or like Adine can't go to a combat because she has work.
yeah, yeah. She has bills to
Sorry,
pay.
guys.
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. It's so good. So let's say Sam, Carlos, whoever gives you the call and is like, "Hey, can you help us like plan a D20 season? Do you have like a dream cast, a genre you'd love them to hit? Who are you putting in the DM's chair?
I want. Uh, I want just because I it's not going to happen for a while. I want Abria's post A Crown of Candy
Mm-hmm.
because we had Matt come in and do the prequel. I want Abria to give us what does this world look like later. Um, Obviously, and then like Brennan's there, and I think I would like Brennan, Emily, and then bring in some people have never really done stuff like that.
Yeah,
Even some like Calamity cast. Bring in, like Luis, bring in, even like Travis, something like that, for just what does the world look like after the Crown of Candy finale, after the fucking Candia has expanded because of a wish spell.
Allie. Yeah, um, yeah, that would be. Oh man, that would be super fun. Yeah, oh, yeah, that would be delightful. Also, you could, yeah, I can see you could bring Matt in as a player. That would be fun. You don't get to see him play very often. Um, yeah, hey, that would be very fun, and Abria would be perfect for it. Another like here's a sad plot, and let's go. Yeah, I'm always curious, like in those terms, like how much Brennan is, or anyone really there is like, let's go back and let's do some more. Because it always feels like they're ready to do like the next cool thing, but they've made such amazing worlds. Like I want to see them again, and I also want to see the cool next thing they're going to do. And it's like, oh, there's only so many weeks in the year, and you all are producing content nonstop. Um, yeah, I do love, I love especially Abria, but really everyone. Like I love when they bring in someone that I've either never heard of or at least never seen play D&D before. Where like you get like an Oscar Montoya comes in to play and just like crushes it, and you're like, oh, this is great. I didn't expect this, and it's amazing. Um, yeah. Oh man, Calamity. What a what a thing that was. I I remember that was I was watching that like not live because no chance in the world I'm staying up for a 6 hour episode, but I was like watching it week to week with them at least. It would take me 3 to 4 days to finish an episode. And yeah, goodness, Brennan just like came in so hard for that universe, which was amazing. And that was actually when I mentioned like Abria might get Brennan's world as well. It's that moment in Calamity is what I was thinking of, where she's like, "This is the last thing I needed for my world engine thing," and Brennan was like, "I didn't know she was going to say that," and it was like, yeah, like Abria just came in and was like, "I know you need us to get there. I'll just say I'm ready now," and like we'll just skip all the rest of that part, like that plot line that you needed, and we'll just be ready to go.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Uh,
How was Calamity for you then? It was not really room to breathe, but as sad as you could make it.
yeah, I Calamity was the first time I think I really got into Critical Role. That's kind
Mhm.
of where I came in. Um, and then I started. I am not a start at the beginning type of person. I am a start wherever I want type of person. So I fully got through like 50 episodes of campaign 3 and then 50 episodes of campaign 2. That's kind of where I am for no, I think I'm like yes, like 65 episodes into campaign 3. And then like 50 into campaign 2. Have not touched campaign 1. There's
Yeah.
so much of it.
There really is. There's an episode of
There's
Campaign 2 that's like 110, 120 in. That's just a 5 hour episode. Not a finale, not it's just like not a planned thing. It just happened to be that. And I remember when I like started the episode, I was like, it's 5 hours long. This is gonna take me a
just
week to get through this. Like, Yeah. But really, I mean, obviously, they are such incredible storytellers. We are coming up on the hour. Elle, if people want to see you on more of you on the internet, where can they find you?
I am L Mac Wednesday or Tuesday, ELLEMACK, and then the days either Wednesday or Tuesday, everywhere. Mostly Wednesday, but yeah, that kind of. And then if I get my way, one day I will be hosting a podcast called Game Without a System, where it is a TTRPG podcast, but we don't know what TTRPG we're playing beforehand, and we make it up as we need. Like, we make up the mechanics of the game as we need the game.
That's super fun.
Uh,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that plan. I will download and then not have time to listen to them, but I will absolutely download. Elle, thank you so much once again for donating to Doctors Without Borders. Thank you for spending this time with me. This has been absolutely delightful. I love getting to talk to folks about the things that I love so dearly. So thank you so much. As always with these interviews, I don't know how to end them, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.